Okay, build video time again. This time it's the Templar Healer, my Templar Healer, the way I like to run it. It's not too different from how most people run it because the Templar has so much good healing skills that there's hardly any space on the bar to swap things out. Maybe one or two flex slots on each bar, but that's about it. So let me quickly buff up with food. We're using the Clockwork Citrus Fillet here. And get right into the character sheet. We've got 33k, almost 34k max magicka, almost 17k health, and then 10k max stamina, which we don't really need except for one of our skills. And then magicka recovery is at 2200, which is pretty good. Our spell damage is around 1600, but that will go up with one of the glyphs we're using and a couple of our abilities. I'm a vampire here. It's not required though. I do like it for the extra magicka recovery. And I didn't really have any problems with it so far because you can out-heal most of it. So I pretty much run everything on a stage 4 vampire, but you don't have to be one if you don't like the red eyes or so. You'll just have to be a bit more careful with your resources because your magicka recovery will be a little bit lower. And then we're running the Atronach obviously to boost our magicka recovery. On this healer build, I tried it with the ritual one for stronger heals, but the heals are good the way they are, and I'd rather have the magicka recovery. The food we're using is Clockwork Citrus Fillet, which gives us max health, health recovery, max magicka, and magicka recovery. If you don't have that, because it's too expensive, you can just use Witch Mother's Potent Brew. You'll have a little bit less magicka and health and recovery, but it's almost the same. This one is better though, if you're planning on running the harder veteran trials. Now, as you've seen, I'm an Argonian. I've tried it on a Breton too, actually. I used to be a Breton Templar Healer for the longest time. But I do like the stronger heals from the Argonian, like just the random the random healing increase that is in the Life Mender passives. And then we also get max health and max magicka. Also, when we drink a potion, we restore 4000 health, magicka, and stamina. Very nice too, in terms of sustain. So, the Breton has reduced magicka cost for the skills and a bit more max magicka, but I didn't find it necessary really. Like, I tend to spam my skills a lot, and I never run out of magicka. So that's why I decided to try it with the Argonian, and it works really fine. The healing is a bit stronger, and I don't have resource problems the way I'm running this build. But obviously you can also be a Breton or a High Elf if you prefer that, if you just don't like Argonians. Now, let's get right into the skills. On the front bar, the first thing we've got is Energy Orb. This comes from the Undaunted skill line. It's the last thing you can unlock there. Morphs from Necrotic Orb, and what it does is you throw a orb towards your allies that slowly floats forward and heals them for 1k health about every half seconds. And then they can also activate the Healing Combustion Synergy, causing the orb to explode and heal for about 7k, and also restore 4k magicka or stamina to your allies, whichever is higher. So this really helps people in terms of sustain. It looks like this. You're just throwing this orb, and everything it passes, like me here, will get healed by it. And then they can activate the synergy to restore resources and a good chunk of health as well. Very important skill, has been for the longest time. And after they changed it now, everybody can activate it too. So you only have to throw one into the group and everybody can activate the synergy. Next up is from the Restoration Stuff skill line. Illustrious Healing, that's the first thing you unlock there. And what this does is you just put a healing field on the ground, and it heals for 2k health right away almost, and then for another 2k every 1 second for 12 seconds. So this looks like this. You just put this healing field down and everybody inside it gets healed all the time for 12 seconds, and then when it's run out you can recast it. It goes away though, like you can put it on multiple places, so you can just have it in one place at a time, just wait for the 12 seconds to run out and then recast it. Next up is Breath of Life. This is our big burst heal that heals an ally in front of you or yourself for 10k health, which is very, very much. And then it also heals another injured target for 3,500 health. So this is a burst heal. This looks like this. If you can see in your group that someone is close to dying or getting close to dying, you just use this skill. It's quite expensive, so I wouldn't spam it. It's more like an oh shit button. If you see someone's close to dying, you just do it once or twice and heal them back up. This is from the Restoring Light skill line, by the way. The first thing you unlock right away, it's called Rushed Ceremony, and then you morph it to Breath of Life. Okay, the next thing we've got is from the Dawn's Wrath skill line, which is very nice. This is Power of the Light. That's the stamina morph of Backlash, actually. The other one does more healing, but what's nice about this one is that the targets are also afflicted with Minor Fracture and Minor Breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance. So you can help, if you choose this morph, you can help lowering the enemy's resistance or the boss's resistance, whereas the other morph just gives a bit more healing to everybody else. What it initially does is it just deals damage, and then it's copying all the damage taken from you and releasing it after 6 seconds. That looks about like this. It's this green beam you can put on several targets' heads, and then it lasts, and all the damage you do then will be copied and released in an explosion when it's done. But what we're mostly using this is really the Minor Breach and Minor Fracture to reduce a boss's physical and spell resistance, sort of. So you want to keep that up on priority targets or bosses, just so they have less resistances and the DPS have an easier time killing them. And then last but not least, Combat Prayer from the Restoration Stuff skill line again. That's the third thing you unlock. It's called Blessing of Protection. You can morph it to Combat Prayer, and what it does is you slam your staff down to activate the blessing, healing you and your allies in front of you. But more importantly, it also grants everyone that you hit, well, up to 6 targets I think it is, Minor Berserk and Minor Resolve, increasing your allies' damage done by 8% and their physical and spell resistance for 8 seconds. So this is a damage boost and a heal. So if this was your group here and they were fighting a boss and you would stand behind them or in the group, you always want to make sure to keep this up every 8 seconds. That's how long it lasts, just so they always have the damage boost. And then when it's run out after 8 seconds, just reapply it and try to have a constant uptime on it, because it's really nice if people get healed and get that damage boost at all times. So you want to keep that up all the time. The ultimate we've got on our front bar is Reviving Barrier. This comes from the PvP skill line. You're gonna have to play a bit of Cyrodiil or Battlegrounds for this. It's in the support one, and the ultimate, and it unlocks at level 6 I think. And what this does is you summon that ward, like a damage shield for everybody next to you, that absorbs up to 26k damage for 30 seconds, and it also heals everyone inside of it for over 16k over 15 seconds. Quickly show you what that looks like. It's like this big ward, and everybody inside of it gets this shield that absorbs a shitload of damage and heals them constantly. So if you are in a trial situation or in a dungeon situation where you know that there's a lot of damage incoming, like if you're in Ethereal Archive at the final boss in the execute phase and there's a lot of damage going on, just pop that barrier, it'll last for 30 seconds, and give everybody a shield and heal them. Very strong ultimate. I'll go into other skills in case you haven't leveled that up that you can use in the spot of that later on. Okay, back bar, running a lightning stuff on the back bar. First skill we got here is Elemental Drain. There is an optional skill for that though. Elemental Drain puts minor magic steal on a boss for 23 seconds, causing the allies that attack it and yourself to restore 300 magicka every 1 second. So that's very nice to help out with the sustain of your group. And then it also puts Major Breach on the boss or target for 23 seconds, reducing their spell resistance by 5k. So you're lowering the spell and physical resistance with Power of the Light by 1300 with Minor Fracture, Minor Breach. And then this one is Major Breach, which lowers it for another 5k, and those two stack together. So that's very nice. Now, if you don't need Major Breach, because your tank is, say, running Pierce Armor in this taunt, and that puts Major Breach on your on the target anyway at all times, there is a really cool option in this, and that's the Radiant Aura. You can put that also on this slot, and it doesn't give Major Breach, but it also applies the Minor Magic Steal, and it doesn't cost anything, and while slotted you gain Minor Fortitude, Minor Endurance, Minor Intellect, increasing your health, stamina, and Magicka recovery, which is awesome. Plus it's an AoE thing, so it's just all around the field. Everything that you hit with it will have the Minor Magic Steal on it, as you can see. Whereas if you chose, or have to, run the Ellie Drain, you'd have to put that on every target, so it doesn't go to everybody. You'll have to put it on every single target. Hence why, if your tank is running the Pierce Armor taunt that already gives the Major Breach, I would always prefer to run the Radiant Aura from the Restoring Light instead of the Elemental Drain. It's just a lot easier to have it be an AoE magic steal where everything around you gets infected, and you don't have to worry about putting it on every single target. Okay, next up is our big ground heal. This is Extended Ritual, and what this does is it puts a healing field down on the ground, and allies inside of it can activate the Purify synergy to cleanse themselves of all harmful effects. So this is a purge kind of thing, like a cleansing skill, where people can activate the synergy to lose any negative effects that are stacked on them. And it's also a very strong ground heal, and a very, very bright ground heal. So it looks like this. Very big field, and everybody inside of it gets healed over time, and can use the synergy to purge themselves of negative effects. So that's pretty much what you have in terms of ground heals. Your Illustrious Healing, which is a little bit smaller, and you have to keep up every 12 seconds. And then your big Extended Ritual, and that should be good for ground heals. Now the next thing we've got is sort of a ground heal, but it needs activation from the DPS. It's also from the Undaunted skill line. The first thing you unlock is Sanguine Altar. It costs life though, so don't use it if you're close to dying. And it also puts Minor Lifesteal to enemies in the area, healing allies who attack them, like when they damage them, for almost 800 health every 1 second. Plus, allies can activate the Blood Funnel synergy, so we're given loads of synergies, as you might have already noticed. We got a synergy in the Orb here, and we've got one in our Extended Ritual, and we've got another one in our Sanguine Altar, and one in the next skill. But, however, the Altar synergy heals your allies for 40% of their max health. This just looks like that. You put this Altar down, and if I attack something in it now, I get health back. I can expand it a little bit so I lose some health. And now if I attack things, you can see on the side the green numbers, I'm getting health back. And everybody does, not just you. That's why it's so helpful. Okay, next thing we've got is Luminous Shards. This is the one skill that we're using from the Adric Spear skill line. And what this does is you throw shards at a target destination that deal magic damage, and allies who are near the shards can activate the Holy Shard synergy, restoring 4k Magicka or Stamina, whichever is higher for them, and then they also restore an additional 2k Magicka or Stamina, whichever is lower. So they get all kinds of resources back. This looks like this. Just throw this spear somewhere, it does damage to the targets in the area, and then people can activate the synergy if they are close to the spear. Alright, so last but not least in our skills is from the Destruction Staff skill line, the Elemental Blockade. That's the second thing you unlock there. And what this does is you slam your staff down and create a field of shock, because we're using a lightning staff, which can set concussed enemies off balance, meaning that they will take more damage. That's pretty much why we're running this skill. It's an AoE damage field, and there you already saw it, off balance. That means the target is gonna take more damage for a short duration of time. So you can help with DPS a little bit, but the most important bit is the off balance part, so that your whole group does more damage to the target if you can proc the off balance. Okay, so much for that. Last but not least, we've got Warhorn, the aggressive horn from the assault skill line, also one you have to play a bit of PvP for. This time it's not support, it's the assault skill line, and what this does is for 30 seconds after you use this skill, your allies will have 10% more max magicka and stamina, plus you and your allies gain major force, increasing the critical damage for 15%, for 10 seconds, that is. It's just because my skill isn't fully leveled up yet. This is mostly important for the major force, because that's a really big damage boost you can give to your group. Increased all their critical damage by 15% for 10 seconds. And that's why healers and tanks run this skill usually on one of their bars, so they can alternate their horns. If you got 2 healers and 2 tanks in a trial situation, and you've got good ultimate regeneration, you can pretty much keep a really good uptime on the major force and always have the critical damage of your allies increased, so that they just get their targets killed a lot quicker. Okay, so much for that. Now, I've already gone into one skill that you could use, which is Radiant Aura instead of the Ellie Drain here. I prefer the Radiant Aura unless the tank runs the Ransack Taunt, then I'll have to come up with the Major Breach for them to reduce the spell resistance. Other useful skills to have here: Puncturing Sweeps, if you want to do a little bit of damage. I wouldn't change it for the Orb or any of the healing skills, but maybe you don't need a Blood Altar, for example, and then you can just put them on here and help a little bit with the damage. That's just sweeps, and they do AoE damage. It's also really nice if you're trying to level up a character and you need some skills to do some damage because you're questing on your own, and you don't really have too much to offer in terms of damage on a healer build, on a Trials healer build, Dungeon healer build anyway. So sweeps is a nice skill to have. Then you've got Solar Prison. That's the Dawn's Wrath ultimate that morphs from Nova. And that's a very, very good option if you don't have Barrier unlocked yet. So if you don't have Reviving Barrier yet because you haven't played that much PvP, or you can't be arsed to do it really, even though I would advise you to, Solar Prison is a really nice ultimate. This calls down fragments of the sun. It's like a big ball of light that smashes into the earth, and then it deals magic damage to everything in the area. Also afflicts them with Major Maim, reducing their damage done by 30 seconds. So your whole group is going to take less damage from the target that you put it on. Plus allies can activate the Gravity Crush synergy, dealing 11k magic damage to all enemies in the area and stunning them for 5 seconds. So this is also sort of a damage mitigation ultimate, which also gives a synergy and also does a lot of damage. That's a very good option if you don't have Barrier yet for your front bar. Alright, another thing we've got here in the Restoring Light skill line would be Channeled Focus, and that helps you with your resistances and also with your Magicka Sustain, because it grants you Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5k, plus you can also recover 240 Magicka every 1 second. So you could also sort of put that here on the slot where Blood Altar was, because Blood Altar isn't always needed, though it's nice to have. And then that's very good for your sustain. So if you're standing there, healing your group, doing all sorts of things, and then you can just use this skill, and as long as you stand inside of that rune, you will gain Magicka back every 1 second. So this helps you out with your sustain a lot. If you realize you're running low on Magicka, you can drop that on the ground and it'll help you get your Magicka back up real quick. Okay, so much for this skill line. Another good skill to have would be Crushing Shock. This is pretty much a range interrupt. It does some damage, but mostly if enemies are casting a spell and need to be interrupted, it will interrupt them and set them off balance and stun for 3 seconds. So if this enemy here was casting a skill, you just attack it with the Crushing Shock and it will be interrupted. Sometimes healers have to take care of the range interrupts, and if you don't really need any other skill on this slot at the moment, I would just go for this one. It's situational though. If you know that you're in a trial or a dungeon where you don't have to take care of interrupting anything, or where there is nothing to interrupt, you obviously don't want to run Crushing Shock. Okay, and then another thing we've got is the Radiating Regeneration. That's a very nice healing skill. That morphs from regeneration, and it just heals you and up to 3 nearby allies for almost 17k health over 10 seconds. So that's quite a big heal, and that's a far away heal, sort of. If you put that on your bar, and it looks like this, you just put your stuff in the air and you heal yourself and 3 nearby allies. But they can be quite a bit away. Like, let's say the ally could stand over here where that mount is, and you could be over there and still hit it with that heal. Whereas it would be harder to try and place other skills there. You can if you want to. But it's just a very strong burst heal for up to 3 allies. Well, not burst over 10 seconds, but it's a very strong heal. 16k is quite a lot. And then another thing you've got is Healing Ward. This will give a damage shield to yourself and an ally. It's also a very nice skill. Just looks like this. And then you or an ally get a damage shield for the time being. So if you have to take care of one person specifically who has to take care of some mechanic or so, that can also be a very nice skill to have. Alright, so much for that. I'd also get Harness Magicka just in case you ever need a shield. That's pretty much a shield that absorbs up to 8k damage for 6 seconds. Because sometimes if you're in rougher trials, it's very nice to have a damage shield if you know there's a lot of damage incoming. Mostly as a healer, you just put down your ground heals and everything anyway that you stand inside, and you have Breath of Life as a burst heal if something bad happens. But there are certain mechanics where a big bump of damage comes in, and you know when you just pop a shield then. Alright, so much for that. Now let's put my normal skills back on the bar. Oh yeah, and obviously Purge from the support skill line. That just cleanses negative effects. You do have your extended ritual that you put in the ground, where people can use the Purify synergy and cleanse themselves. But in some trials it's nice to have Purge anyway, stuff like Halls of Fabrication, because it removes up to 3 negative effects immediately for you and your group members. Okay, so much for that. We'll quickly go into the passives now. From the Adric Spear skill line, we're only using the Luminous Shards, but anyway, this Piercing Spear one gives us more critical damage, which is nice. I mean, we're the healer, we're not doing loads of damage, but we do have a high Magicka pool, and we do a bit of damage, so if we can crit with it, why not? Spear Wall, when you cast an Adric Spear ability, so when you throw your Luminous Shards, you gain mana protection for 6 seconds, reducing all your damage taken by 8%. It's a very nice buff as well. Burning Light, when you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability, which we do with the Luminous Shards, again, we have a chance to deal additional magic damage, because magic is higher for us. It's also very nice. If you can get more damage, why not? And then Balanced Warrior. We do this pretty much for the spell resistance. You just get an extra spell resistance of 2640, which is also pretty cool. Dawn's Wrath. The only thing we're using here is Power of the Light and the Nova if you don't have the Reviving Barrier ultimate yet. So I would get this just if you're using the Nova, or if you're ever being asked to use the Nova because Barrier isn't needed. It'll increase the durability, the duration of your Nova by 2 seconds. And then Prism, casting a Dawn's Wrath ability, generates 3 ultimate, which is very nice, can occur every 6 seconds. So you're just doing Power of the Light on the target and you gain ultimate. Illuminate, casting a Dawn's Wrath ability, grants minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing the spell damage by 10%. That's very nice. You're boosting the whole group's spell damage just by using Power of the Light regularly. And then Restoring Spirit reduces health, magicka, and stamina and ultimate cost of your abilities by 5%. That's obviously very necessary. Any reduction cost on a healer is always welcome, and so you definitely want this one as well. And then Restoring Light, which is pretty much the healing tree. You got Mending, increases the healing effects of your Restoring Light abilities by up to 12%, very good. Sacred Ground, while standing in Cleansing, Ritual, Rune Focus or Rite of Passage, for 4 seconds you gain, and even after leaving them, you gain Minor Mending, increasing your healing done by 8%, so that's also very nice, plus you can block a little bit more damage. Then Lightweaver increases the duration of Restoring Aura by 20%, Healing Ritual grants 2 ultimate to allies healed under 60 health, and the Rite of Passage grants you 16,500 spell resistance, so that's also very good. You want all of these passives, and all of these passives are great for healing, which is why Templars are pretty much the favored healers in the game, and have been for a long time, just because their passives work really well. Destruction stuff, you want all of them, because that's the weapon we're using on the back bar, and restoration stuff, you obviously want all of them. Also, there's one thing, I want to quickly go into. Fully charged heavy attacks with resto stuffs restore 30% more magicka, and they also strengthen your healing. So if you're a healer, don't just spam your skills all the time. Make sure to throw in a heavy attack with your resto stuff once in a while, just to get a whole lot of magicka more back than you usually would, and make your healing stronger. Light armor, you want all of these, because we are running 5 pieces of light armor. That's our main thing, and this will increase our spell critical rating, our spell resistance, our magicka recovery by a whopping 20%, reduce the cost of magicka abilities by 10%, so all of these are great. In the medium armor skill line, the only thing you really need is Windwalker to get a bit of stamina recovery, because Power of the Light costs stamina, and Athletics to get a bit more movement speed, which is nice, and reduce the cost of roll dodge, which is also nice. Heavy armor, you just want the first 3. These will only apply when you're wearing 5 or more pieces of heavy armor, which we are not. So you just want these for a bit more max health, health recovery, and physical and spell resistance. Vampire. If you want to be a vampire, the ones you need is Supernatural Recovery, increasing your magicka recovery and stamina recovery by 10%. Undeath, reducing the damage taken, and Unnatural Resistance, which reduces the severity of the health recovery determined in vampirism stages. So, as you know, when you're a vampire, the higher you stage, the less good is your health recovery, and this will help balance it out a little bit. However, one thing I want to say right away is the ZOS have announced that they're changing the vampire skill line, and the way it looks now, like, it's not been released yet, and it's not final yet, but the way it looks now, it might not even be worth it being a vampire on any healer or DPS anymore. But that's up to seeing. So if you want to be a vampire for now, go for it. But when the Greymoor chapter drops and they're doing all these patches and stuff, make sure to check back and actually read the vampire skill line and see if it still makes sense, whatever they're coming up with. Okay, Fighters Guild, if you have it, you can get the Banish the Wicked one to give you 9 ultimate when you kill an undead Daedra or werewolf. Undaunted, you want all of these, because we're wearing 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, so we get increased health, stamina, and magicka per piece of armor worn, which is 6%, and then also when we take synergies, we restore a bit more health, magic, and stamina. The only thing you need in the PvP skill lines, or not need, but is nice to have, is the magicka 8. If you have a support ability slotted, your magicka recovery is by 5% higher, or 10% higher if you get the second one here. So if you're using Reviving Barrier as your main ultimate like I do, it's definitely worth getting these passives for the extra mag recovery. If you're using Nova, it's not really worth it, because Purge is very situational, and you usually don't need it on a Templar because you already have Extended Ritual, which also cleanses negative effects. However, I would definitely advise you, even if you hate PvP, at least get up to level 6, get Reviving Barrier. It's really worth it. You obviously want all of your class skills, that's a given. And then in Alchemy, you want Medicinal Use to have your potions last 30% longer, and pretty much have a full uptime on them. Okay, So much for the passives. Now let's get into the sets that I decided to wear on this. They work really nicely together. We'll start out with the front bar, and that's the Master's Restoration stuff. You want it empowered with a weapon and spell damage glyph, so that your spell damage, which influences your healing strength, will be up by 348 for 5 seconds if your glyph procs. And then you want it empowered to increase your healing done in general by 8%. And what it does is the initial heal of Grand Healing gives all the allies inside of it for 4 seconds 97 magic and stamina back every 1 second. So Grand Healing is this skill here, Illustrious Healing, from the Restoration Staff skill line. It used to be Grand Healing, you can morph it to Illustrious Healing, and that just means that when you put this down, people inside of it will restore magicka and stamina. For 4 seconds, the skill itself lasts 12. If people are really low on resources, or if you are really good on resources, you can just put this down, wait 4 seconds, put it down again, wait 4 seconds, and just give them a bit of a boost in their recovery of their resources. Another staff you could use instead of the Master's one, I'm not sure if I have one on this character. Yes, would be the Asylum's one. That one comes from Asylum Sanctorium, the trial, when you defeat the final boss. And that means when you cast Blessing of Protection, which is our combat prayer, the cost of your magicka and stamina healing abilities are reduced by 27% for 3 seconds. So that helps yourself with your resources a little bit. This helps everyone, your whole group, which is why I favor this one. But the Asylum one would also be a nice one to use. And it'll help yourself with your sustain because it'll reduce the cost of your abilities for 3 seconds after you casted this one here. So that's an option, and failing both of these, if you don't have the Masters or the Asylum's Resto, just use Olarim's Resto stuff, which is from the Olarim set, which we're running anyway on our back bar. So Olarim comes from Cloud Rest. That's very easy to get. There's heaps of people running Cloud Rest and Craglorn in the zone chat all day long. What this does is it gives you magicka recovery, minor Aegis, reducing your damage taken from dungeon and trial monsters by 5%, another 124 magicka recovery, and then casting abilities that leave an effect on the ground will create a circle of might for 10 seconds. People that pass through the circle will get major courage for 30 seconds, increasing their weapon and spell damage by 258. So this pretty much looks like that. You need to be in combat, that's why I'm going to attack one of these guys. And then you put a ground ability down, like the Fate, and you get this circle here. Now everybody who is in the circle, or even after they left it, will have the major courage buff for 30 seconds. You can see that down here above the blood altar, the symbol that's slowly ticking down. And that'll just increase their weapon and spell damage. That's why Olarim's is set to be one of the best healer sets at the moment, because there's no other source, I think, where you can get that buff, the major courage. And an extra 258 spell damage or weapon damage for your whole group, or everybody that runs through the circle at least, is very nice. Now what you want to do is, and this is by the way why we're running a Master Staff on the front bar, where we don't have Olarim's, or at least not the 4 and 5 piece bonuses. So we can't proc that circle on the front bar, that's what I'm trying to say. Whatever you do in the front bar, you won't be able to proc Olarim's because you have the Master's Resto. Olarim's is only on your back bar because that's where your stuff is, your Olarim stuff. So you need to be in combat, and you need to put a ground ability down. It can be the Blood Altar, or it can be Elemental Blockade. Anything really. Most important thing is where you place that circle. So if the ads are here and your group is here, you want to place it on your group. But it's very easy to choose where you want to place the circle. Especially with the I usually tend to place it with the Elemental Blockade, because if the enemy is here or the boss is here and your group is here fighting it and you're a bit behind them, it's just nice to put the Elemental Blockade down. The circle lands right on your group and the blockade still lands on your enemy. That's how you can use Olareams. That's why you only need it on one bar, on the back bar with the lightning stuff, preferably. And you gotta figure out and work a bit and see how you place that circle, and just play with your healer and get used to it. It's really nice once you know exactly where to place your circle, where your group is gonna be. You can give everybody that buff all the time, and that makes it really worth using this set. So that's Olaream's front bar with weapon and spell damage glyph powered, the restoration stuff, and then Olaream's in charged with shock damage enchant, because we want to have the highest chance to proc the concussion off balance with the shock damage, and charge will help us increase the chance doing so. And then on the jewelry, all of the jewelry can be arcane, and all of it can have spell damage glyphs. We don't need any magicka recovery glyphs on our jewelry. Why is that? Because of this set. The next set we're using is Heaties. That comes from the Ice Reach dungeon that was added to the game with the latest DLC. And this gives you so much magicka recovery bonuses, like 2 times 124, that we can run spell damage and arcane on all of our Olaream's jewelry here. So Heaties gives you magicka recovery, max magicka, and when you heal yourself or an ally, you gain a warming aura for 10 seconds. And while in the warming aura, you and the group member restore 1200 health every 1 second, and also reduce the cost of sprint, block, and roll dodge by 5%. So this is helpful for anyone really, even the tank, because of the block cost reduction, or your DPS if they have to dodge something. And also it's just really nice to constantly have that aura around you. It can occur every 12 seconds and it lasts for 10, so there's only a 2-second downtime. And as a healer, you're healing people all the time, so you will pretty much always have that aura around you that heals people for 1200 health every 1 second. It's a very strong set for healers right now. Let me quickly lose some health and demonstrate that. Now I heal myself and I get that aura, that orange circle, and everyone inside of it will get healed by 1200 health every 1 second. Very, very cool set. One of the better sets that got added with the latest DLC. And yeah, I really enjoy playing it. It looks fucking awesome. It gives you a load of magicka recovery, allows you to up your spell damage here on the jewelry. And then you can also always pretty much have that aura up and heal people just randomly if they're around you. So that's a really great set, and it's really fun to play. Looks awesome. Last but not least is Symphony of Blades. This comes from Depths of Malatar, and it gives you 4% healing done, plus when you heal an ally who's under 50% of their primary resource, you grant them Meridius Favor, which restores 2200 magicka or stamina, whichever is higher for them, every 1 second for 6 seconds. And that can occur every 18 seconds. So 1/3 of the time, you can always give people who are low on their resources back a whole lot magicka and stamina, over 2000 every 1 second for 6 seconds. This is also very good for sustain, because that's what you want to do as a healer. You want to keep people alive, but you also want to make sure they have enough resources to do the damage that is required to complete the content that you're in. So that's why I'm trying to balance things out. Olaream's gives them Major Courage, which is a damage buff. The Master's Resto gives them resources back. Symphony of Blades also gives them resources back. And then Heaties gives myself magicka recovery, and heals everyone with that warming aura that's around you. So this is a really nice balanced approach to giving people resources back, helping them with their resource management, buffing their damage, and also keeping heals up. Alright, so much for this. Really fun build, try it out. I'll quickly talk about what you can do if you don't have any of that stuff that I just talked about, because Master's Resto, Olaream's Trials gear, Symphony of Blades is from a very hard dungeon on Veteran, and Heaties if you don't have the DLC. So what I would do is I would oh yeah, let me quickly go over the gear. The big piece is an infused head, chest, and legs in infused, and the small piece is in divines, all with magicka glyphs on them. That's pretty much it. So optional gear. If you don't have any of that stuff, there's always Warm Coat. This comes from Walls of Madness, which is a base game dungeon. You don't need any DLC for it. It gives you extra spell damage, extra magicka recovery, and it also reduces the cost of your magicka abilities by 4% for you and all of your group. So this has always been quite a good healing set. It's easy to obtain because Walls of Madness isn't a very hard dungeon. There's loads of bosses in it that have the chance to drop set pieces from this. So if you don't have the DLC for Heaties, just go with Warm Cult. It's still a very, very, very good healer set. Now, for monster sets, if you can't get Symphony of Blades, there's always Botgun the Night Flame, which gives random healing, or if you want to make sure, as I said, that you provide enough resource management to your group, there's always Sentinel of Rakugams, which also gives you 4% healing done, plus when you heal an ally, you have a 10% chance to summon a Dwemer Spider that heals for 1200 health and restores 111 magicka and stamina up to all your allies that are in the area. So this is like a smaller version of Symphony of Blades maybe. It doesn't restore as much magicka and stamina, but it certainly helps people out, giving extra heals and providing a bit of magicka and stamina recovery for them. So these will probably be my go-tos. In terms of sustain, I would prefer Rakugams here, but if you can't get that one yet, Botgun the Night Flame is also very nice. This just summons a totem which heals people that are in it. It doesn't do anything for the sustain though. So you've got Worm Cult, Rakugams, and then on the front bar and jewelry, both resto and lightning staff, just get someone to craft you staffs and jewelry of this set here. Cold Harbor's Favorite, that gives you max magicka, a bit of spell damage, and when you heal yourself for an ally, you summon Cadwell's Noble Mount, who after 2 seconds casts a healing spell on you and the allies around him, healing them for 14,600 health over 4 seconds. So that's also nice. You get spell damage, magicka, and an extra heal that is random. You don't even have to worry where you put it. And that will be my beginner setup. You get someone to craft you Cold Harbor's Favorite, resto stuff, empowered, and lightning stuff in charged, and then 3 pieces of jewelry in arcane. You put Warm Cult on the body, and you're running Sentinel of Rakugams on head and shoulders as a monster set. And then you can slowly work your way up and try getting the Master's Resto, Oloreems, Symphony, and Heaties. Okay, so much for that. Very fun build to play, and provides a lot of healing. I even tested it in veteran trials and all. It holds up very well. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.